Hello and welcome to Spirituality and Nutrition. So just let me tell you a little bit about myself before we go on. Firstly, I'm a registered nutritionist and a nutritional therapist. I work with many organizations here in Glasgow and corporate organizations throughout the UK. I work on a one-to-one basis with clients. I especially work with people with gut health issues or women's hormonal issues. So yeah, and I also have a free group called Tip Top Toms in Facebook. So if you want to come along and join me there, you'll find me there, where I do lots of free things going on, free challenges, and lots of information about gut and looking after your health. So please do come and join me in there. So just to start with, so spirituality and nutrition, does the Bible even say anything about it? And does God even care about what we eat? And if so, what should we eat? So let's start with the Bible. So in 1 Corinthians 6:12, it talks about I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. So here we've got Paul, who's talking about, we actually have the right to do anything, but is it actually beneficial? So we have the right to eat an ice cream cone. It's quite a nice thing to do. But would it be beneficial to eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Probably not. So what else does Paul say as we look through the scriptures? So in the same chapter, in verses 19 to 21, Paul talks about our body being a temple for the Holy Spirit. And he says, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. So, we're called to honor God with our bodies. And what does that actually mean for us as Christians? And I think if we look at it in the terms of, this building, this building, is obviously a Christian church. It's got the cross on the top. It's a beautiful building, stunning building. But what happened if it got cracks in it? Would you come along and fill it with polyfiller? And if you kept filling it with polyfiller, what would eventually happen to that building? It wouldn't be sustainable. It really wouldn't be sustainable. So we need to think beyond polyfiller. And we need to think about what would actually be good for this building if cracks started to appear. And it's the same with our own body. We're called to honor our body. So should we then be putting food in that just sustains us as a human being, or should we be putting foods in that sustains our health as well, so that we have a healthy body that harbors the Holy Spirit and honors God? Well, let's have a look at the kind of things that we can do as human beings that maybe help nourish our body and keep it alive, well, and in good health. So here's my 3 nutrition tips to maintaining your temple. So we're going to look at plant-based foods. We're going to look at pre and probiotic foods, and we're going to look at healthy fats and proteins. And I consider these 3 things the pillar for good health. Okay, so we start with plant-based foods, and this is all the rage at the moment. Veganism is all the rage, so what does the Bible actually say about plant-based foods? Well, actually, it starts in Genesis 1. So in Genesis 1, the first command that God ever gave man, he says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. And God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, they will be yours for food. So in the very beginning, God told man that plants were essential food for them. You know, seed-bearing plants, plants that fruit that grew on trees. So he gave us a wide variety of food to eat and maintain our bodies. Why? Why? Because we need nutrients. We need nutrients such as vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and phytonutrients and fiber and protein, fats and glucose to maintain our body. And our plant-based food contains all of these things. And how do we know that? Because science is now showing us that we know that. That they contain these things, and that these are things that help our body to function properly. So in the very beginning, God knew what was good for us, and he provided natural food that were good for our body. And science now is actually holding that up. So when I come to helping people with their diets, and the things that I do in kind of when I'm promoting health, one of the things I talk about is Eat a Rainbow. And the Eat a Rainbow diet is taking the different colors of fruits and vegetables, and you eat from each color every single day. So you eat from one of these categories every single day. So you might have a red apple, and you may have some cucumber. And in the blue section, you might have some beetroot. And in the white section, you might have some onions. And in the yellow, you may have some oranges. So you would eat one from each group every single day. And then what we find is that, you know, there are 7 colors of the rainbow, but we don't break the fruit veg into 7 colors. But we still need 7 a day minimum in order to sustain our body. So what I recommend is 5 vegetables a day and 2 fruits. And this will help us to have all of these vitamins and minerals and antioxidants, phytonutrients and fibers and proteins and fats and glucose that we can get from our diet to sustain the body. And what they'll do is they'll help us maintain, you know, our health. So they're anti-cancerous. So they help to reduce your risk of cancer. They help to balance your hormones. They're anti-inflammatory, which when the body is inflamed, that causes us to become ill or overweight or obese or have problems like diabetes type 2. So that all comes from having inflammation in the body. It protects our cells and it boosts our immune system. So eating the rainbow is one way and one tip that I'm going to give you to help you to sustain your temple that is housing the Holy Spirit. So the next thing I would suggest is pre and probiotic foods. And what do I actually mean by pre and probiotic foods? So prebiotic foods are foods that what they do is they feed our gut bacteria, and our gut bacteria thrive on them. So within us, we have a whole host of trillions and billions of gut bacteria. And the more trillions and billions of this gut bacteria that you have, the more that increases the, it makes your body more healthy, because these bacteria, as we found out from science, is they interact with our body, they interact with our brain, they interact with our immune system. You know, they talk to our body, and they help us to have a healthy body. And when we're not eating these foods, these types of foods. So foods that are rich in prebiotics, the onion family, the kind of lentils and beans type family, and other fruits and vegetables. There's a few here on here, but more than that. You know, they're also fibrous foods, and we didn't know. At one point, we didn't know that fiber was actually good for us. And it's just in recent years that we've discovered that fiber is actually essential in order to for our gut bacteria, because that's what they munch on, and they then are reproducing. And what they also do is they poop out vitamins. So they chew on our fiber and then they produce more vitamins for us, especially the B vitamin and vitamin K. And there's also other things like what they call short chain fatty acids, which are all useful for brain function, for heart function, for gut function. And if we're not eating, if our bacteria is not chewing on this type of food, then it's going to reduce and our health is going to get gradually worse over time. So that's your prebiotic foods. So what about your probiotic foods? So your probiotic foods are foods that are rich in bacteria. Now, we find these in things like yogurt and sauerkraut. So fermented foods that have been fermented. And what they do in the fermentation program is they grow lots and lots of really beneficial bacteria. And we actually, when we eat these foods, we actually don't sustain this. They're kind of, it's a bit like going to a football match or a rugby match on a weekend. So you'll go to the match and you'll support your team, you'll shout for them and you'll cheer them on. And that will help to motivate the team and, you know, help to keep the team strong and wanting to win the match, you know. And so probiotics are a bit like that. They go through our system and they act like the football supporters, and they cheer on the bacteria that's there, but they generally don't stick around. So we need to eat them every day in order to keep supporting the gut bacteria that we already have. And so your pre and your probiotic foods will work together to really create a good, what they call gut microbiome, which will help and to maintain a fantastic gut and fantastic gut health, which will actually help with your overall health. So eating these daily will be very, very helpful. So we move on to fats and proteins, and fats and proteins come in all forms of shapes and sizes, okay? But, you know, the question we are often asked now is, should we eat meat? Veganism is a big thing now, and people are, you know, turning to veganism. But what does the Bible say? So in Genesis 1:24-25, and God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And so it was. God made the wild animals according to their kind, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. So in the very beginning, God differentiated between wild animals and livestock. So what are livestock? Livestock are animals that humans depend on, and animals who depend on humans. So there's a kind of symbiotic relationship between the two. And why do we need livestock? Why did God create livestock? Well, possibly because he knew Adam and Eve would sin and they'd have to be kicked out the garden. So they would need another form of food that was sustainable, because they were no longer eating from the tree of life, which probably had all the nutrients that they could ever need to live forever and ever and ever. But once they're out the garden, they didn't have those nutrients. So it's quite possible that when they left the garden, they actually needed livestock to eat from. The other theory, my theory, of course, looking at, you know, how the body works and the science and being a nutritionist, and then looking at the Bible, it is as likely that in the garden they actually milked the cows, the goats, or whatever, the livestock, and they actually drank of that. And the reason they may have done that is because the bacteria in the milk produce is so rich. So they actually could, like nowadays, what we do is we pasteurize the milk. So we kill off all the bacteria. So we have to ferment the milk in order to get the probiotic that we need for our body. But in the days before pasteurization, we didn't have to do that because we could drink the milk from the animals and that would give us the bacteria we need. So it's quite possible, and I'm not saying it's I don't know this for certain, but it's quite possible that Adam and Eve needed the livestock in order to get the milk and the probiotic effect that it has on the gut. We also know from Mark 14:12 that Jesus ate meat, and from John 21:10-15 that he ate fish. So God came to earth and he actually ate meat and fish. So I think that is enough to say that is okay for us to eat meat and fish, okay? Because God himself, when he came here, he ate those products. So I think God developed the livestock for us to actually eat it at some point. That's my thought. Anyway, what we do need from meat and fish is we need healthy fats. And these are not as prevalent in today's intensive farming. So we don't get so much in the intensive farming today. And the fats, and by fats I mean omega 3s, 6s, and 9s, and you get a balance of those. So in organic, grass-fed, free-range type products, you will get a really good balance of these, and so they're the better products to eat when it comes to meat. But in the intensive farming, the structure of that has changed, so it's not as good to eat intensive farm meat. However, oily fish has so much good healthy fats in it, far better than the plant food ones. And we can get it from plant food, and it's not a problem as long as we're eating enough plant foods like avocados, nuts and seeds, and good quality oils. We can get the type of oil that we need to sustain developing our cells, balancing our hormones, for our brain health, and from our gut health. So we can get all of these things from the plant-based, but it's actually better in oily fish if we can eat oily fish. Healthy proteins. Now we need protein in every single meal that we eat, from breakfast through to our evening meal. And the reason for this, there's a number of reasons, is because protein helps us, keeps us fuller for longer. So we end up not snacking on rubbish like crisps and biscuits and chocolate. And it helps us stay fuller for longer. So we can tend to go to lunchtime if we have nuts and seeds in our breakfast. So they keep us full for longer, but they also have a range of amino acids, so proteins, that are used for building our body, for building our brain cells, for building our muscles, for building and keeping good structure in our body. And without good quality protein, our body will start falling to bits. We will no longer have a healthy temple to hold the Holy Spirit in. So if we've got to honor God with our bodies, we need to make sure we have good protein. So looking at meat and fish and poultry and eggs and nuts and seeds, pulses, legumes, and tofu, these are all good sources of protein. And we need them in every meal. And if we need to snack, we should look more for protein-based snacks rather than our high carbohydrate, sugary snacks that we often tend to reach for. And the reason for that is because protein is more nutrient dense. Now, the one thing to remember is animal sources of protein are the only source of B12 that originates from natural products that God created, the livestock, and the plants. So, B12 is actually only naturally found in animal produce, okay? Including things like milk and cheese and products like that. And so they're the best sources. So unless we're supplementing these in our diet, the best place to get them is from animal produce. And if you're not getting enough B12 in your body, you may find it'll affect your energy levels. It could affect your cholesterol levels, sending them higher, and resulting in heart disease. They affect your brain function. I think I said that. Yeah, no, I didn't. So they can, if you haven't got enough B12 in your body, you could effectively, if you're on kind of the borderline of mental health issues, that will make your mental health issues worse. Or even if you just don't have enough B12 in your diet, you can experience low moods and, feeling depressed and unhappy. And it could be that you're not getting enough B12. So you may need to think about that too. And of course, animal produce has better sources of iron and higher levels of choline. And iron is needed so that you don't become anemic, and choline is needed for liver function. And your liver is your detoxing organ. So if you're not detoxing properly, it might be that you don't have enough choline in your body. So what is the conclusion then to this? A balanced diet. The conclusion is we should be eating a balanced diet with lots of colorful nutrients, lots of different things. We need to look at animal sources for our B12, our iron, and our choline to ensure that we're getting enough of that. And, so making sure that you have a very good plant-based diet, making sure that you're eating pre and probiotics in your diet every day, and making sure that you have good sources of fats and protein will help to keep your temple healthy. So does God care about what we eat? What do you think? And if so, what should we eat? Well, I've given you some ideas of what we should be eating, and I hope that was helpful. So if you have any thoughts, any questions, do get back to me in my group Tip Top Toms. You can ask lots of questions in there if you want to come and join me there. And I wish you a good day, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for listening.